Omar, good to see you, man. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, Peter.
This is exciting,
You go by
man. Pardon me?
Go by Petey, right? Not
Yeah,
Peter.
absolutely, Petey. Yeah. Well, Petey, Pete,
I
whatever
got
you
you.
want.
Just making
Man.
sure.
This is all about you. This is about your movie. This is African Giants making its world premiere this year at Slamdance. Like, can you believe the words that came out of my mouth just now?
I have to be honest with you. I've been pinching myself nonstop because I cannot. I've always wanted to play at Slamdance. Bong Joon-ho debuted his feature here. Like, it was like a dream of mine. And so when they called me, I can share. I definitely cried. I definitely shed a few tears because I couldn't believe it.
Dude, well deserved, man. I'm so happy for you. Here's the thing. I find it interesting because, and I'm really excited to get your answer to this because, you know, you had wore many hats on this. This was your project. You know what I mean? So it's one thing to like write a script and then go and film it, right? And in a lot of ways, those are two separate journeys. In a lot of ways, you can make an argument. But I'm wondering for this project, did it feel like two separate journeys or did it feel like one big journey with multiple steps? I'm curious about that.
That's a fantastic question, and I would definitely say it's the latter. And I've been very fortunate so far in my career that everything I've made has been stuff that's like autobiographical. I made a short about me and my dad. Now this is about me and my brother, and I'm sure we'll get into it. But 95% of this film like either really happened or was a conversation that we happened, and I had a couple tweaks. It's very real. And so when I made the film and wrote it, I kind of always, the inception of the idea actually came from a little bit of frustration with the industry in terms of, I had some success with my short, my managers were taking scripts out and all these things, but I felt like no one was, biting on making these films. And I said, I'm like, Omar, you're a filmmaker. If you're a filmmaker, you have to make films. And so I wanted to write something that I could go out and make myself. And so I luckily came into contact with some producers that helped me fundraise. And so it definitely was like, all one step. The whole point was hopefully to be at the point we are now. And the fact that we are is why it's such a dream come true, because, you're kind of hoping you're manifesting this thing and it's going to happen. And then when you're able to actually find the collaborators and the team and then the fundraising and then shoot it, it was all one step to get to next Friday when we're premiering. But it's been a dream come true.
But you know what I mean, though, right? Because you write something, it's what they say, right? It's the film you write, the film you shoot, the film you edit, right? And in a lot of ways, but like, and I feel like sometimes, depending on the project, you might say like, wow, this whole writing process with its own thing. You know what I mean? Like, compared to whatever steps.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And I feel like the only reason this one doesn't have that is because it was made with the intention to be shot. I remember actually a friend of mine, we were having a conversation, and I remember telling him, I need to shoot a feature. We were writing at the time, spec scripts and sending it out. And I said, I need to shoot a feature. And he was like, what do you mean? And I was like, I need to go raise the money and just shoot a feature. And he was like, why? And I was like, because I actually don't want to be a writer. I want to be a writer-director. So sending these spec scripts isn't what I want to do. And I was inspired by Barry Jenkins and Damien Chazelle and Destin Daniel Cretton, who all shot like a micro-budget feature before they went on and did Whiplash, Short Term 12, all these things. I was really thrilled and inspired by that. And so I kind of was trying to do my version of Medicine for Melancholy, my version of this, and make something that I could execute. And so that's why it all felt one, because when I'm writing it in terms of, do I know I can execute it?
Yes.
Is it a scale I can execute? And also, I already had some of the cast in mind because some of them I've worked with before. I had the team in mind because they're the same people from my short. So it was like a beautiful, we're all running the same direction to get this goal across. So we knew what the goal was.
I'm a creative as well. I'm a filmmaker. I have a short as well that I did. I wrapped last year that I co-wrote and I produced as well.
Nice.
So I totally get that 100%. So but it's a special feeling to see something you wrote pop up on Video Village while you're filming, right? It's like one of the coolest feelings, right?
It's watching dailies is to me one of the best moments of filmmaking. And I don't even like necessarily sit and watch every frame, but when I come back from a day on set, that was a great day, hopefully, and watch what we got. And when I look at the dailies and say, that was my production designer's idea. That was my DP's idea. That was my whatever's idea. It is, in fact, that's the thing that attracts me the most to filmmaking. The idea that something that I got an idea for when I was taking a shower or playing 2K
going on
now
a walk.
exists.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going on a walk. Right. It now exists in a tangible form that even if people don't know me, they can watch it and feel something.
We're on the same page, dude. We're like, oh my God, like we're we got man, we gotta hang out. Like this is like I feel like the conversations.
Listen, we definitely do, and that's my drug. That what I'm addicted to, and why it's the best thing on earth is coming from an idea that was nothing that now exists as a thing. That's what I love.
100%, and that is the best segue, Omar, to my next question, because I feel like it depends on the project, right? So, but you're gonna answer this with African Giant specifically, but how conscious are you of the audience member watching your movie while you're making it, or does that kind of happen afterwards?
That's a great question, and luckily, I always say like maybe my problem is that I maybe I should be a little bit more self-aware and think more. And this is what I mean. When I was making the film, I always have the audience in mind.
Yeah.
But sometimes when I'm making the film, I have an audience member who basically is like me. So someone who likes the things I like, likes the stories I like, can deal with the pace, can deal with these things. And I always tell my team, like, we'll do a shot, like a big camera move or something. And I'll go, the audience is going to go crazy. People in the theater are going to lean in for that. People are going to do this or for that. People are going to do this. So I always have them in mind. And luckily, like the audience member I'm looking for is somebody like me. And what I mean is I'm I like my film tastes are very eclectic. Like I love Still Walking, like My Hero Greta. I love The Weeknd, but I also love James Bond and Black Panther and Creed. And so I always like to think about the things that like I can take in a certain genre of film and things I don't like. And so I'm kind of making it for an audience member, but the first audience member I should say is me.
Yes.
And is a version of myself. But I find that like, we're making films for other people. So for me, I'm like, if I'm not thinking about the audience, then I'm doing something wrong because they're the ones that have to sit through the hour and 46 minutes of it. I already love it,
And, you said in the beginning of this interview, we're going to get into it because, a big part of like over 90% of this movie is based on things that happen. We're getting into it now. I want to know
Let's do it.
What the selection because when you're making a movie like based on your life, there's a lot of material there and a lot of like things to kind of think about, right? So I'm just curious, like, was the selection process of what's going to be kind of focused and what's going to be the main story, like, was that hard? Was it a no-brainer? Like, you knew what you were going to do? Like, what was the selection process? Because it sounds like this is something like really close to your heart and very, very close in regards to like things that happen. So I'm just curious about that.
That's a great question. And what I'll say is that when I was very young, my mom said, be careful how you behave. Your little brother's watching you. Yours here. And because of that, when this event happened, right, later in the film, which is, the older brother's intoxicated and less than ideal, my little brother in real life, I wish I could tell you that wasn't based off real life, but he took me out for the party from embarrassing myself. He sat with me. And when he sat with me, he took care of me. And at that moment, I realized that, he could be my hero, that I could look up to him. He could take care of me. So that was always the seed of the idea, which is it's going to be brothers. At the end of the film, something is going to happen that is going to make him be in this moment and recreate the real life moment. So that was always the structure. And then after that, I'm very big on arcs. Like, I just feel like in filmmaking, in order to, at the beginning, they have to be one way. And at the end, they have to be
totally
another way. Otherwise, what are we watching? What's the story?
Yeah. So
I built the arc, which is, he's going to come in scared to tell his brother that, the ending, and then come in with a different decision. And then the older brother's going to come in living this facade and then realize that his brother is actually, a smart, capable person.
Yeah.
So with those arcs, that always is the outline. And then in filling it in, it actually became quite simple to fill in different things because I knew where they had to go and what they had to get. So how can these conversations lead to that? And the one thing that I'll say is like one moment, there's a conversation in the film that is about kind of the disconnect between Africans and then African Americans who were born here and for generations.
Yes.
That was the only conversation that I was mortified of putting in the film. And I was mortified because it's like a very dark moment for Africans and some African cultures who do believe that. And I almost took it out because I thought it was too real. And then I said, if I'm not putting the real in the film, then how do I expect it for people to feel real?
Totally.
And I ended up putting it in. I'm so happy that a lot of people tell me that's the biggest discovery. They didn't know that. And that moment is one of the biggest moments for them. So I'm glad I didn't listen to myself and take it out.
Oh, absolutely. And last question for a wrap up. I watched this movie and the self-reflection component really hits me. I see a lot of these characters doing a lot of self-reflection, figuring things out. And during the pandemic, we had 3 years of self-reflection because we couldn't really go anywhere else. We were at home thinking about things. So I feel like when you watch movies like African Giants now, Omar, I feel like they become like more relatable because we were doing so much self-reflection during the pandemic. I know we're 3 years removed from it, but do you think about that at all, the self-reflection and pandemic component? I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, it might be one of those things that I didn't even think about it until you said it, but I think you're so true. And the reason I can say that is I got the idea for this film during the pandemic.
Yeah.
So I was living in my apartment in Glendale at the time, and I was literally sitting there and thinking. And a lot of the scenes, in fact, when I wrote the first version of the script, it was based off that apartment. And literally, it's you just spend time. And I've always been a person that's kind of emotional, which is great. I think it's one of the best assets of a filmmaker is if you can be emotional, you can touch in with that. But my point being is I've always been a person who kind of reflects and been fortunate enough to have family members who talk with me, like especially my little brother. And so some of those conversations we had years ago, but I definitely think that in the pandemic, it gave me the space to really think about what kind of stories do I want to tell? What are the themes I want to bring across? And then also remember some of these conversations and put them down and find them in my notes or whatever. So it definitely was a part. I didn't think about it until you said it, but I definitely think it was a part of it.
100%. And, African Giants is making its world premiere at Slamdance this year, 2024, part of the narrative feature section, January 19th. I'm so happy for you and the cast and everyone. Congratulations. Or it was so great chatting with you, man. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Pete. I love it. I love your energy. I love your questions. It was a thrill. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. You have an Instagram account, right? People keep up to date with everything?
Yeah, at OS Kamara. And then there's also at African Giants Film.
Awesome. Well, this has been Pop Turner, youtube.com/Pop Turner for previous episodes. Until next time, it says Omar S. Kamara, who has his film African Giants making its world premiere at Slamdance 2024. And PD Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.